carboxylic acids, esters and amines. Carboxylic acids are carbonyl with an OH group attached. So same thing as a ketone with an OH on the end instead of a carbon group. Okay, the carbonyl is named as the number 1 carbon, the carbonyl carbon. Okay, and then you add oic acid to the end of it. If it's on a ring, you'll call it cyclo, however many the ring is, and then you add carboxylic acid to it. If it's part of the ring, then you don't need the carboxylic acid part, you can just add the oic acid. But if you have a ring, kind of like that, you have a ring, and then that, then I would name it with a carboxylic acid. But if it was part of the ring, okay, that would be a little bit dicier to name. Okay, I have 2 examples we're going to look at. Okay, the first one is 2,3-dimethylbutanoic acid. Butanoic acid is butane, which is 4. Okay, so that means I'm going to have 4 carbons in a chain. And again, the first one is going to be, or the end one is going to be my carboxylic acid or the double bond. So I'm going to have C double bonded O with an OH. They're always on the end there. And I have a group of 4. So I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3-dimethyl. So off this carbon, I'm going to have a methyl group. And off of this carbon, I'm going to have a methyl group. You've got to start counting here with the carbonyl carbon as 1. So then I go ahead and I fill in the rest of my H's, which is CH and then CH3. If I have cyclobutane carboxylic acid, I'm going to have my cyclobutane, which is 4, and then a carboxylic acid, which is kind of like the generic C double bonded O, and then OH. Sometimes you will see if these are written out, you'll see COOH. That's the same thing as C double bonded O, OH. So you can write it really either way. You see it both ways. Okay, esters. Esters have the H of a carboxylic acid replaced with a hydrocarbon group, which means you have RC, the double bonded O, and OR. Okay, so instead of that H there, I have another carbon chain. You name the alcohol section first and then the acid section, and it's named with an O8 acid, which would be the longer of the chain. We give the O8. Okay, so how these get named here, I have 2 examples. Is methyl ethanoate, which means I have a methyl group, so I've got a CH3, and then ethanoate. So that means I'm going to have the O, okay, because there's my substituent, the methyl. And I have C, double bonded O, and it's an ethane, which means I have 2 of them. So there's 1 carbon, and here's the second carbon. So here's the ethanoate part, and then there's my methyl group. So notice how you named the alcohol part first, which was where the H originally was, and then you named the acid part, which is the longer chain. So ethyl hexanoate would look something like this. I have an ethyl group, so I'm going to have 2 carbons. And then I'm going to have hexanoate. So I'm going to have my first carbon is the carbonyl carbon, okay, and then I'm going to have 5 carbons after that. Here's the hexanoate part. There is my ethyl group part. Okay, lastly you have amines and amides. Amines, if it is a secondary or tertiary amine, you name it with an N and then whatever the alkyl group is. Okay, if you have more than 1 N, you do actually have to do NN, like not necessarily more than 1 N, but more than 1 group off of the N, because you're saying it's off of the nitrogen. Instead of giving a number for being off of the carbon, you say N to give it off of that nitrogen. If it contains a functional group with oxygen, you call it amino versus amine. Okay, amines mean that you are looking at an RNR of some kind. Okay, carbon groups around a nitrogen. If you have an O in there somewhere, then you have an amino. If you have an amide, you replace the oic acid with an amide ending, because amides have a carbonyl carbon in them. And so you end it with amides. If you see a double bonded carbonyl group there, you have an amide, not an amine. So we're having an amine in one and amide in the other. So when you say N-methyl-1-propanamine, okay, I have prop, which is going to be 3. Okay, and I have a 1, which means off of that first one, I have an N. I'm going to fill in the rest of these, CH3, CH2, CH2, and off of the nitrogen, I have a methyl group, which is going to be CH3. Okay? If you name the amide, I have ethane, which is going to be CH3C, but it's the IDE, which means a double bonded carbon to an O, and then my nitrogen. Okay, that's the amide part. And then I have N-methyl, so I have a group off of the nitrogen group, which is CH3. N-methyl ethanamide, or amide.